Hello, I am Elder Small, and welcome to this session. Here today, we'll spend a brief time in review of Chapter 5. We left off with reviewing Chapter 5, Session 1 of 3. Today, we're going to go into Session 2 of 3. And if you remember, we left off talking about Tehuti. And so today, let's kind of dive into Chapter 3. Kind of takes us a little deeper into what our ancient records have to say about Tehuti. Tehuti, he's a major figure in the Pert M Heru, that is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Likewise, there are endless commentaries and books written on and about Tehuti. But here is what Wallace Bud says, quote, "It is more than probable that some of the gods who were worshipped in dynastic times represent in a modified form the deities of the savage or semi-savage Egyptian that held their influence on their mind the longest. A typical example of such a god will suffice, namely Tehuti, whose original emblem was the dog-headed ape. In very early times, great respect was paid to this animal on account of his sagacity, intelligence, and cunning. And the simple-minded Egyptian, when he heard him chattering just before sunrise and sunset, assumed that he was in some way holding converse or was intimately connected with the sun." End quote. And so this is the same Tehuti that I discussed in Session 1 of this three-part series. If you remember, Tehuti is recorded as the pyramid builder the builder of the original Great Pyramid of Giza and the one who invented the hieroglyphic writing system. The ancient records list him as the priest king of Atlantis. He established a colony in Kemet and ruled the ancient colony for 16,000 years, from approximately 50,000 BC to 34,000 BC. The Kemite priests deified him and claimed that he gave humanity the gift of speech, writing, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and many other sciences. Wallace Budge, whom I just quoted, lived from 1857 to 1934, a period that covers the Berlin Conference and the quest of Europeans to colonize and control the world. He represents a group of Europeans who dubbed themselves Egyptologists. He worked for the British Museum, and during his tenure there, he made several trips to Kemet and the Sudan, wherein he looted Kemite graves, temples, and other structures of what he called savages and semi-savages to build the British Museum's collection of cuneiform tablets, manuscripts, and papyri. Today, there are over 110,000 objects in the British Museum's ancient Kemite collection. And so, George G. Jackson explains the bias when he says, "A lot of them, that is, white historians, have taken the position that the African is the low man on the totem pole and everybody had to be ahead of him. Some of these people are just plain lying because they have to have capital in order to operate. James Henry Breastard is a fine example. He published a high school textbook in 1916 called Ancient Times. It had two very fine chapters on Egypt, and in the book he plainly states that he plainly states in there that the ancient Egyptians were not white folks, but a brown-skinned race. And then he needed money to establish the Oriental Institute and to do research in Egypt. John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave him $1.5 million, and then Breastert put out a revised edition of his textbook, and the Egyptians became members of the Great White Race. In other words, to get Rockefeller's money, he had to switch over the Egyptians to the Great White Race. In the European misinformation or disinformation paradigm, the ancient Kemites are labeled savages or semi-savages, or the descendants of Asiatic Semites, or the Great White Race. This is all part of the reality program that billions of people have been indoctrinated with. It is a program that built walls around ancient records, information, and knowledge, making it impossible to understand the origin of life in the universe that we inhabit. This is especially the case concerning Africa and its connection with the origin of human beings, the origin of human life. This dispensation of Egyptology and theology is responsible for mass confusion. In the words of Gerald Massey, it has obscured the past and perplexed the present and beclouded the future. Thus, we live in a world where spiritual science has been transformed into religious dogma, false doctrine, and blatant hypocrisy, making chaos look like the only permanent institution in creation. Nevertheless, the ancient writing concerning Tehuti tells us that he incarnated into the bodies of men 3 times. And in the last incarnation, he was known as Hermes, the thrice born. The Greeks call him Hermes Trismegistus. It was during that incarnation that he gave the world the Emerald Tablets. And the Emerald Tablets tell us that human beings are the embodiment of immortal souls, light beings who are intrinsically multidimensional. Tehuti says, and I quote, "Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwelled among us." Let me repeat that. Quote, "Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwelled among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire." End quote. Beings from higher dimensions, that is, children of light, lived and interacted with the people who lived in the colony Tehuti established in Kemet. The children of light taught them about consciousness and about the consciousness and interconnectedness of the universe. Thus, Tehuti is emblematic of universal oneness and interconnectedness, that is, consciousness. He is a symbol of our ability as incarnate souls to transcend multiple dimensions, that is, time and space. In clear and objective language, Tehuti tells us that the earth is the home of not only human beings, but also beings from other galaxies, planets, and dimensions. The expression human beings are spirits having a human experience resonates throughout the Emerald Tablets. And so does the revelation of incarnation, as even the children of light were said to have the ability to incarnate in human bodies. Tehuti tells us, and I quote, "Far in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light looked down on the world. Seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond, knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking on the semblance of men as their own. The masters of everything said after their forming, "We are they who were formed from the space dust, partaking in life from the infinite all, living in the world of children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men." End quote. Life for human beings does not begin at birth. No, on the contrary, human beings are physical manifestations of immortal souls who have as much to teach as they have to learn and experience. Human beings only need to wake up and stop sleepwalking, unaware of who they are, where they came from, and where they are going. Waking up is synonymous with walking into the light and becoming a light on a dark path that helps others to find their way. Death is only a signpost on the path that leads from darkness to life. Death is likened to a cloud, wherein the rain passes through the clouds, like life passes through the death of the physical body. In the same way, the rays of the sun passes through a clear glass window. Tehuti says, quote, "Awaken, O flame that burns ever inward. Flame forth and conquer the veil of the night." End quote. The flame is the light. It is you who is infinite, eternal, and one with the flame, one with the light. The light just referred to is best seen and understood through the lenses of the soul. Those who plot and plan to maintain control over the human perception of reality want us to believe that death is the end of life and that upon dying there is cessation of awareness and consciousness. They infer that the soul sleeps with the body in the grave as if the soul is synonymous with the body. To deny the soul's place in the universe is to say that the universe is lifeless. In truth, upon the desolation of the body, the flesh enters the dark chambers of the earth and the soul returns to the astral realm. The soul, synonymous with life, with fire, with life force, or consciousness, transcends the physical planes and rises to the higher planes of life. And so I'm going to stop there with this chapter, with this second session review of chapter 5. I'll pick it up from here in part 3, which will be the last session of this 3-part session of my book, 3-part review of chapter 5 of my book, You Deserve More. And so with that, I'll say Dua, Hotep, I say, and may you be blessed with the greatest good and supreme intelligence.